welcome to everything you need to know about licensed backhauls. My name is Joe Tassoni. I'm the systems engineer here at Moonblink, and my primary job is to support Moonblink customers. So over the next 30 minutes, we'd like to give you a general understanding of the key considerations surrounding license point to point. So the first thing we'll do is just take a quick look at the agenda here. So this is basically what we're going to go through. So everything from the purpose of license frequencies of backhaul to the positioning to the different pieces, and then we'll also talk about the associated government paperwork and make sure that everything's done properly and that that you would be legal to transmit if you were to adopt a technology like this. And then we'll leave questions and answers for the end. Okay, so first of all, so what's the purpose of license frequencies? Well, the official answer basically is they're managed by the FCC. The purpose of spectrum management is to mitigate radio spectrum pollution and maximize the benefit of usable radio spectrum. So basically what that's saying is that they want to maximize signal and transmission quality potential through regulation, and basically provide interference protection to registered systems. So they feel that by doing that, that's going to create an ideal environment for people to transmit, for companies. Okay, so we'll look at the types of spectrum. There's about 4 major ones that we'll cover here. And the first type is license exempt. Many people who have adopted license may have come from the license exempt background, the unlicensed. And basically, it's a good technology because it's low cost, typically. There's not any coordination or registration required. But unfortunately, there's an opportunity for interference because there is no coordination. But if some users are smart, they usually try to work around with their neighbors and work. But basically, the FCC regulates the use of this band by just making sure that you don't have too much power coming out of your transmitters. So depending on what frequency you're at, it's regulated usually to a couple of watts maximum. And that's the EIRP, the effective isotropic radiated power. So the next type is owned. And typically the only people that can afford these are large carriers. They purchase spectrum that's usually given in depending on what area they operate, and it's auctioned out. So when a carrier purchases this stuff, they're responsible for coordinating with themselves so they don't interfere, and they may need to do some coordination with neighboring systems as well. So the third type is licensed or leased. So this is typically, you have all the rights of, like, let's say a telco that buys spectrum, but you're just leasing it like you would a car or a space, that you have all the rights. It's like you're owning it, but you only have it for a certain amount of time, a finite amount of time. And typically that's 10 years. So anyway, there is obviously coordination and registration required. What they'll ask is they ask a lot of information, but the reasons for this is to make sure that that your transmission is recorded and it's better controlled and it's able to exist in harmony with other transmitters as well, because we're not obviously the only ones that are transmitting RF out there. So also the regulatory body in the case of the United States, it would be the FCC. They would help assist with interference cases. They would assist the user, so that's good. And then finally, the last one is a light license type of spectrum. So this is special. This is typically around 2 types of popular technology: the 802.16d fixed WiMAX standard using a 3.65 gigahertz. That's a light licensed type of spectrum, and also the millimeter wave narrow 80 gigahertz technology, the high-speed, short range backhaul, is also falls in that category, and it's usually about $200 to do that, and that's typically just a nominal cost rather. So the goal of this, of course, is just to make sure that there's proper coordination and that people can use this and not worry about interference. Okay, so some of the driving factors, why would someone use license? What are the features? What do they offer versus other technology? So one of the main big drivers of using license is to avoid the crowded ISM, or industrial, scientific, and medical bands, which is where a lot of legacy technology and current technology exists, both in the 900 megahertz and especially in the 2.4 gigahertz band, where you have Wi-Fi that's constantly evolving. So Wi-Fi has been around for a good solid over a decade now, with 12, 13 years, and it's just getting more popular. There's new technologies coming out. There's been everywhere from 2 megabit all the way to now to 300 and beyond megabits using the 11N technology. And then, of course, the Uni 2 bands, the 5.3 gigahertz has been popular for distribution-type networks, broadband, short range, and also longer range, point-to-point, up in the 5758 gigahertz. So everybody knows about that. It's been referred to as the chaos zones because there's just so many people adopting the technology. So the other big benefit is that licensed technology is carrier grade. There's a long history of carriers using this technology. Usually when you look for guidance and leadership out in the telecommunications industry, you look at what the telcos are doing. And telcos, this is the type of technology that telcos have been building their infrastructure around for years with. And it's reliable. And if you look at, if you've done any work with telcos, if they've ever used unlicensed radios, they only use them for maybe testing or for some kind of network that might only last for a month, some kind of rapid deployment scenario. They wouldn't build their actual cellular network or something around those for any long period of time. Obviously, unlicensed has its place, but you don't see many telcos building their actual infrastructure around them. So these radios are having said that they're carrier class, you can get 5 nines reliability with these. So service level agreements, SLAs of this type are now possible. So basically what you're saying is over the course of a year, the link would only be down for a matter of seconds or minutes, and that would be spread out over the entire year. So it would look as though there was 100% uptime to the people using the system. So these radios are able to perform at higher speeds and longer distances, licensed systems. They obviously, because they're built around not having to worry about interference, that's a huge factor on the performance. They use QAM, typically QAM modulation, anywhere from, well, typically 256 for the higher speed systems. It's a type of modulation that modifies the carrier wave, and it basically has very low overhead. So it's able to perform at high speeds. And then sometimes some radio manufacturers get creative by creating additional software that allows better performance through more robustness through error checking and making sure that the security and things like that. But anyway, the important thing is at the core of these systems, you've got a high-speed modulation that's proven and reliable. Another thing is that they're also getting creative with using sort of modern techniques similar, but not identical to, but similar to like 802.11n. We're seeing licensed backhauls using wider channels, which is sort of a technique in a different way. The 802.11 gets higher bandwidth through bonding, but this is just using wider channels. Anywhere from 30 to 50 megahertz wide channels are possible. They use dual polarity in their systems, which is sort of a technique that 11N uses as well, as far as doing multiple in, multiple out transmitters and receivers. In this case, they're just using different planes. So anyway, these are just the main reasons for going with wireless. So with license anyway. So this is a chart of all the popular licensed backhaul frequencies. So along the top here, you have the lower frequencies of 2.5 all the way up to 80 gigahertz. So basically, you have, starting at 2.5, this is like a WiMAX technology. This is the mobile, based around the mobile standard. Its distance is anywhere from 50 to 120 miles. It's got pretty high throughput. It can do distribution and long distance. But one of the things to consider with these guys is that they're close to the Wi-Fi frequency, so you have to expect that there could be a high noise floor when you're deploying around here. So you just have to be aware. With the fixed standard of WiMAX, as opposed to the mobile and the 2.5, this one is basically a distribution technology. It's good out to about 25 miles right now. Of course, the standard is evolving, and there are new WiMAX standards coming around the corner. Typically, so on the distribution application, it's used for point to multi-point. And the thing to consider with this is that the licenses are given out on a first-come, first-served basis, sort of like real estate. If you get the land first, you're able to transmit on it. So you got to be careful of that. That's one of the caveats there. And then there's the 4.9 frequency, which is a good frequency, but this has been regulated to public safety. So they allocated a spectrum to make sure that first responders had access to a network at any time, any place, in case of some kind of emergency or bad disastrous event. So it's very similar to WiMAX. It can be used in an 11A type of Wi-Fi, but it can also, you can incorporate mesh and distribution into the technology. Technologies that are being used in the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz. So anyway, this performs very much like the 5.3 or the 2.4 band, but the only thing is that you have to be a first responder in order to use this. So unless you're a if you're a fireman or a police officer, or you work for Public Works, or you're part of the ambulance system, then you can have access. But if you're anybody else, then you have to ask permission to those guys to use it. Okay, so moving along, then you've got the microwave bands, which is basically 6 gigahertz up to 23. It can actually, some vendors have 38 gigahertz as well, but these are the popular microwave bands, including 11 gigahertz and 18 as well. So their primary type of use is for backhaul. You could get creative and make multiple backhauls and create a star topology, but generally this is how they're deployed. But one of the big benefits to these guys is the distance. You get 50 miles easily with these systems, and any of the vendors that we're going to talk about in a few of the slides. And the throughput is very high as well, anywhere from 330 to 1 gigabit, 330 megabits to 1 gigabit. And also, it's good to mention that some of these systems incorporate FDD technology, so they have radios that are dedicated to transmitting and receiving, so you can double your throughput effectively on those systems that incorporate that. Their application: carrier grade, carrier applications, long distance backhaul, low latency applications where you might need video and voice that chances are if you've talked on a cell phone you probably used one of these systems. One of these systems was used to carry your call. And then looking at 80 gigahertz, very high speed technology as well, and a reasonable amount of distance too. You can get having a 6